for those of us who've been through a spiritual awakening or haven't been through one yet, maybe possibly looking to go through a spiritual awakening, or anyways, we'll stop there. But I'm reading the gospel too. I've been through a spiritual awakening. I see, when I read some of these passages in the Bible, it's like an instruction manual that's been buried that I've never seen before about how to have a spiritual awakening. And so, I find that kind of interesting. So in Matthew 19:21, also in Mark 10:21, Luke 18:22, Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." This is said to the rich young ruler. Jesus gets to the heart of his attachment, showing that it wasn't about money. It was about what was keeping him from surrender. Luke 14:33, in the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. A hard teaching, but not necessarily about literal poverty. It's about inner detachment, the willingness to give all to God. Matthew 6:19-21, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So Jesus shifts the focus to heavenly wealth, a heart aligned with the kingdom. And then it keeps going. Luke 12:15, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. A reminder that the abundance of life is spiritual, not material. Luke 9:5-7-6-2. Here Jesus speaks with several people who want to follow him but have conditions, and his response is radical. No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Okay, so read this. You've heard it. And what I see when I look at this is you can look at this from a very literal perspective, right? But with the spiritual awakening, it's a shift in your mentality from having to go outside for things like validation, fulfillment, self-worth, to bringing it all back within. And for my journey, I went on this spiritual awakening through the grace of God and God's help. And God sent the Holy Spirit to help me, right? And help fill the void within and help me with all this, okay? And so I've had that help with my spiritual awakening. But then also, you listen to these verses and sure, you can apply a literal approach to it. But I see now that these verses, they support that shift in mentality, okay? And so I think that's kind of profound, I suppose. It is, yeah, it's profound. And I'm in Europe, right? Why am I bringing that up? Well, I'm in Europe and I'm walking around and it's beautiful, right? But what I see, and I'm not into this anymore. I was, but what I see is that there's a lot of smokers in Europe, right? I'm not putting down smokers at all. I used to smoke myself. I smoked for nearly 10 years. My favorite brand of cigarettes was a French-Canadian cigarette, Demore. I still remember how that tastes, right? And I'd go into a weekend, for example, Friday night, and I would stock up. I would buy 2 cartons of cigarettes. It's a lot of cigarettes. Because I knew I'd go through them and I wouldn't want to be, having to stop the festivities every weekend just to go out and buy another pack of cigarettes. So I'd always have 2 cartons on hand. That way I could just seamlessly keep the addiction going, right? But why am I bringing that up? Well, it's just that I see in Europe, because I guess it's very cultural here, that there's a lot of smoking. And then like North America, there's drinking too. And with my spiritual awakening, I had stopped drinking alcohol, and before that I had stopped quitting smoking. But it's interesting, you've got with the spiritual awakening, for it to happen, you have this shift in your psychological mentality from having to go outside for fulfillment to within. And then you look at our lifestyles, And when you take habits like drinking alcohol and cigarette smoking, well, these are material habits that condition you into physically like believing that you have to do things externally to get your fulfillment. And it's a lie, because before you got into that stuff, you felt fulfilled. You felt, I mean, and that's the real interesting thing at the end of the day, isn't it? It's because, if you're a smoker or you drink alcohol, you're doing these things because they make you, ultimately, they make you feel a certain way, right? And the truth is that you didn't first experience those feelings when you first had those habits. You experienced those feelings before you got into those habits. So the truth is that ultimately, you don't even, like, that's not even the interface. Like, you participate in these habits, but you do so because they make you feel a certain way, right? Well, good news is that because you weren't born smoking and drinking alcohol, I hope. You know that those feelings are perfectly achievable without those habits. And so if you're looking to quit those habits, which you should, and I'll get to why that is in a minute, not for the reasons why you think you should. If you're looking to get rid of those habits, you could put on a piece of paper that bad habit, the way it makes you feel, and then identify a good habit, like exercise, for example, and the way they make you feel. And I'll bet you find that you've got similar feelings coming from both the bad and the good habit. And I know that a lot of you that'll resonate, because a lot of people, they exercise and they smoke cigarettes, or especially drinking alcohol, right? Too, that it's harder to do the exercise when you're doing the other, right? But you also know, though, too, that you remember that you get peace. There's this profound sense of peace post-workout, right? And so you can do this exercise, and you can kind of, and I know this is easier said than done. Like, quitting smoking was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but all the more power to you. If you can figure out how to quit smoking, I'll tell you, you can literally apply that to just about anything and conquer it. So, good for you if you're still a smoker, I suppose, because if you can quit it, you can do anything. So now that I've gotten off topic with all that, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to quit these things, right? Why do you want to quit these things? Because it ties back into these passages that I read, right? Think about how free Jesus is, because he doesn't have any of these possessions. He's literally able to just move. And he's not encumbered by these things, right? And when you read these verses, first glance, you're thinking like, possessions, right? Like, if that were today, that'd be your car, that'd be your stereo, that'd be your home, right? But when nobody, I think's made the distinction yet, I guess, is that this is very applicable to addictions. And addictions are even more of a ball and chain than, let's say, a stereo, I guess. And you think about how inhibiting that is, right? Like, I'm here in Bulgaria. Bulgaria's got this beautiful backyard, right? Which I would just love to disappear into with a tent, right? And I'm fortunate enough, I guess, well, I'm not fortunate enough to do it yet, but we'll get there, hopefully. But, if you're because I've been there, if you've got these addictions like alcohol, right? And cigarettes, you're conditioned into believing that you need to have these things to feel this way, which is a complete lie, right? But so you can't even go and take advantage of the beauty that's out here, or it's same thing in Canada or anywhere really, like it's got beautiful nature here or there. You're encumbered by your addictions too. They keep you from moving, right? And it's something that I got to experience firsthand with this brutal divorce that I went through. Because I actually had to leave a ton of my stuff behind in order to be able to save myself. So, I know the pains of leaving things behind, I suppose, physical, but then I also know how incredibly liberating that is. And so I can only imagine what it would be like to be, Jesus, for example, and being able to just be truly free. Like Jesus, he gets all his fulfillment from the kingdom of heaven, which is within him, and he doesn't have any addictions or any real possessions at all. And just think about it for a moment, just how free he must have felt, and how liberating that would be. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just getting into that because in this video, it's because I've gone through this spiritual awakening, and, you go through this, part of the process is this shift in the psychology of your mind, of how a shift in mentality from going outside for fulfillment, satisfaction, wholeness, completion, validation, to within, right? And being able to do that is, but being able to do that is, it's challenging. And I can see now why it's challenging, because when you look around the world today, you've got people conditioned into believing that they have to do these things externally and rely on these external services in order to further support this lie, which is that you have to go outside for fulfillment and happiness, and it's a lie. And so, yeah, I guess if you don't know anything about a spiritual awakening, it's hugely rewarding. I'm told people pay money for spiritual awakenings. I would believe that because of the way that they make you feel and how healed you feel from healed. Yeah, I guess that works, from a lot of things, right? So if this is something that you're interested in, a spiritual awakening, then I would say the first step to you is to try and identify, you got to do that shift from external to internal, and it's going to be a harder shift for you to do if you've got physical things that you do, physical habits that you do, that you rely upon. And I'm guilty of it too, in a less capacity. Right now I'm still big into coffee, right? So I gotta work out coffee. Maybe not, coffee, right? I don't know though, but maybe. But yeah, so if you're interested in a spiritual awakening, and I think you should be, try to eliminate these things, and hopefully maybe some of the things that I said helps do that. Like quitting smoking was so difficult for me, absolutely ludicrously difficult. I had to go on the Nicorette patch, and it cost a lot of money. I don't even know if they still provide the Nicorette patch, but it was totally worth it. I think now what they do, instead of giving you the Nicorette patch, though, is that they come up with new products like Nicorette gum. That way you don't actually give up the... Anyways, now I shouldn't say any of that stuff, okay? But, you got to think, which of the products are more likely to lead to an exit, right? Or which product is more likely just to lead to another addiction, okay? And think wisely about that. But anyways, quitting smoking, drinking, or just any habit that reinforces the mentality and the thought process that you need to go outside for you to show up for yourself, then within, try to break those habits. And smoking is very hardest thing to do, but how fortunate it is for you, though, if you're able to pull it off, because if you are able to pull off quitting smoking, I mean, you can literally do anything at that stage. So anyways, I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you all later.